Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to continue our work on the Phlogisynchotron Pistol. By the end of this series, I promise I'll be able to say that without stumbling over myself. We got some progress done the last time around. Today I hope to get some of the details added in, and if we're lucky, we'll actually get to the handle, but that is going to be a little bit more of an involved process. So we're going to stick to getting some details done this time around. Okay, as you can see, there's some little details in this that aren't quite added in, but personally, I think that's okay, so we're going to leave it. Okay, so let's take a look again. There are some little details in here, like this is actually going to be a fillet. We can add that now. I know I said fillet only at the end, but I'm going to fillet it now. We're going to tackle these little details first. Okay, so one of the things that we need to remember is that this is going to be inserted and inset into this section right here. I'm going to pull up the images real quick. And you can see here that these could actually be placed into little cavities in this piece if we want them to be. This design here is obviously going to be slightly different than the original concept. It's not that much different, but it is slightly different. So remember, this whole section here is going to be a whole separate part that kind of inserts into this main body section. And I'm going to make this part here separate and this part here separate. And in our design, we actually have this whole section here as a separate piece as well. Okay. So we're going to make a sketch on the midplane. We're going to hide most of these bodies here. Hide that guy, hide that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, and that guy. Okay, so we're gonna create a sketch on the midplane, and then we're gonna go for a line, which is just L. We're gonna do that. There are a couple different ways we could pattern this to be how we want it. So what I'm going to show you is how to pattern. So we're going to take this section here. We're going to go to rectangular pattern. And we can actually, we're going to make this a consistent distance first. So we're going to say 2.2 millimeters. Okay, it's not quite the same. It'll do. We could even say 2.1, 2.2, just so it's approximate. I say approximate. Well, okay, so we want to line this up because we're going to be patterning these three pieces. So we're going to pattern this. What we want to do is we want to actually, come on, stop that. Go back to here. Dimension this. We'll make this 3.5 since it's so close. It's 3.5 and 2.2. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to rectangular pattern this. One of the cool things about Fusion is that it is parametric. So if I want to, I can say that this is 3.5 plus 2.2 millimeters. Now, right now I have it on extent. We actually want it to be spacing. So again, we'll have to enter that again, 3.5 plus 2.2. And it will space those perfectly for us. So we're actually going to make this a quantity of 4. And then delete this last one here. Extend this a little bit. Do an arc. And what I want to do is, because I want this to actually be inset a little bit, I'm going to make this inset right on that line. So we actually have to unhide that body. And that's a little bit further than I want. Okay, we're going to finish this sketch. I'm going to actually unhide all these, and I want to do a thing. So one of the cool things about the timeline, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'll warn you right now. So we're going to go back to the point where this is made here. Go back, go back. Nope, we're still there, still there. And we're actually going to extend that. There are a couple different ways we can do this, and I'm going to show you as many as I can. Okay, so this is not the sketch we're looking for. We're looking for this sketch. Edit the sketch. Okay, so I can, that is a projected sketch. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. We can click on that projection thing there and delete it. Click on that. And I lied. Okay, because we used a projected sketch here, there's going to be some issues. We can shift it this way. We'll have to unproject it here. Click on that projection symbol and delete. And then that, and then we're going to do constraint. And we're going to highlight both of these and then do perpendicular. I think I did no, I fixed it, my bad. Going to do perpendicular. So you can see that in here, actually, that might not have been necessary because down here, it's actually not all the way back. So I'm going to change my mind, and this is what happens sometimes when you're modeling props, is you have to undo this stuff. So I'm going to shift all the way back to the end, and we'll see our sketch there. So this bit right here, I'm going to ignore. This could be an angled piece that we add in later, but I'm not going to. In addition, we could in theory make this whole front piece a piece that kind of slots in, but it's not necessarily necessary. And because I'm trying to do this in such a way that I don't have to use any support material to avoid cleanup, this is a very important step to make. We're going to go back here and edit the sketch. We're going to actually bring this and project this line. We're going to go all the way back. Okay. Not perfect, but admittedly, this is only a concept sketch, so it doesn't really matter. We're going to project this line here, and then we're going to project this line here. So we want to actually have this line that intersects here, and I tend to like to have a chamfer when I inset things. So we're going to do a chamfer here, come down, and set it. So now we have our sketch. So finish the sketch. We can extrude. We're going to do a symmetric extrude here. And I think it's going to be, I don't know, probably like 3 millimeters seems awfully small. I'm going to go with 8. Oh, sorry, 4. 4 because that'd be a total of 8. That doesn't like that very much. Let's try that again. Extrude 4. Symmetric. Perfect. Okay, so let's look at that reference again. It doesn't look quite that wide, and actually there's a taper there. So we're gonna not worry about that right now. I'll show you why in a minute. Let's go 3.5. Okay. Now, what I accidentally just did was cut that out of the symbol. Cut that out of there. I'm going to actually go to here and do edit feature, and I want to make that a new body. We're not doing any of the Boolean operations right this minute. So I actually want to go to this sketch that I just made and edit it because I want to do 2 of these at the same time. These 2 are basically the same. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to mirror it. But I don't have a line to mirror it on, so I'm going to just make a random line. I don't want to constrain it to anything. I want to be able to move it around. So I'm going to select those. Select this, select this. I'm going to go to mirror. Mirror. Select these and this. Mirror line. Select the mirror line. Okay. Now the cool thing about this is I can then, oh, that is not what I wanted. Interesting. Why isn't that working? Okay, well, we can do this too. Select that. That is 27 millimeters. Delete that. Put that one in the middle. Boom. Done. Okay, great. Mirror again. Mirror. Select line in the middle. Boom. Done. Okay. Now we can just delete that. And then they're not constrained to each other, which is okay. Gonna do a arc there. Okay, so we're going to finish that sketch, and then instead of that extrude being only that one, we're going to make it both of them. New body, okay, great. So I'm going to isolate these two bodies. Why is, oh yeah, isolate. Okay. Create a sketch on here, and then we're going to make that sort of taper that we're looking at here. So we actually want to project this line here because we want to see where that bottom is. We want that taper to be a little bit past that. Okay, so we know where that point is now. So sometimes I use the center rectangle. I'm going to go past that a little bit. I'm just going to guess. I'm going to make this be, I don't know, 4.5. Yeah, that looks good. Then we're going to do an angle down. There we go. Okay, so we have this section here. We're going to mirror this side. Mirror along that line. Select the mirror line. Great. Okay, and then we're actually going to mirror this again, this whole thing, so that they're identical. Identical signals. Just mirror this whole thing. We'll put a line in the middle. Mirror, mirror line, boom, done. Okay, so now we're going to finish that sketch, and now we're going to cut. So we're going to go to extrude, cut, and then we're going to cut. Okay, so now if we switch to here, you can see that there's that sort of chamfer, and actually it's rounded, and it's filleted, not chamfered. So I'm going to go back and edit that again. Edit that sketch. I'm going to shift this a little bit. And it shifted it down there, perfect. Finish sketch. We're going to cut that again. And then we're going to fill up these edges. Now again, I know that I said wait till the end to fill it, and I break my own rules all the time. So remember that. I break my own rules all the time. I'm going to go with 2 millimeters. Perfect. Okay, so now if we look at that image again, that looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks like what we're looking for here. So these are actually a lot more square in the 3D model, but since there's some interpretation involved here, I'm going to leave these. I'm actually going to get to these and do a tiny little chamfer on the edge of these. And one of the things to remember is I want to print these with as little support material as possible. So I could slice these down the middle, but actually what I'm going to do is I'm not going to chamfer these, and I'm going to There are a couple different ways here I can see printing these to remove seam lines. You could probably print these just fine on any one of these surfaces. Oh, what's going on up here? Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to just delete these faces here. You could probably print these on any surface just fine. This one I'd print on this surface down here. This would print beautifully. This one, same thing, and I'd print on this surface. So you'd have to clean up some stuff here likely, but there's only a little bit of other cleanup you'd have to do. Let's take a look here. This is actually going to be filleted. And I want to make the detail that we're looking for here. So that's going to be a circle right in the middle. Dimension that. We'll go with like 5.5 is good. Great. Finish the sketch. Extrude. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two object and then two objects. So I'm going to make that object this vertex. Make that join. And then we're going to look back at this again. It looks like this surface is actually a little bit lower. So I'm going to go back and we're going to shift that down a tiny bit. Then we're going to fillet that again. There we go. And just to make this a little bit simpler, I'm actually going to make that extrude here of this. I'm going to edit that and make that a little bit 6. Make that 6 millimeters. Make that 7 millimeters. That's a tiny bit too big, so we're going to go 6.8. Perfect. So that doesn't look quite right to me, as this tube is a little bit shorter, and what I ended up doing wrong there is I need to edit this again. I'm going to shift this up, so this is right in the center right now. So I want to get rid of that symmetric thing, and then I want to make this smaller, back to 5.5. I liked that size. And then we can constrain it again, but actually make it go up a little higher. We'll actually go with 6. Okay. And then we want that to overlap a tiny bit. Finish the sketch. Okay. That looks better to me. And then what we can do is we can create an offset plane here. Offset it just like, I don't know, 2 millimeters. Show the construction planes. Create a sketch. We're going to project this onto here. And then we're going to make a complete circle there. Offset that circle by, I don't know, 0.5 millimeters. And then we'll finish that sketch. And then we'll extrude that by about 2 millimeters and join that. Okay, now we're going to round over those edges. There we go. Just a little detail there. And that looks good to me. So what we're going to do here is unisolate these two. And you can see it's pretty close. It's not perfect. There's a fillet there that I think probably could. I'm going to edit that feature, make that a little bit smaller. Yeah, that's good enough. It's close enough for me. Close enough for government work, depending on who you talk to. Yeah. Really, depending on who you talk to. So, okay, we have those details in. There's some panel lines, what I call them panel lines here, which we can edit. We can sort of scribe those in a couple different ways. What I like to do is I create a sketch, and then I draw a line. I'm not going to do the weird panel lines that they're doing here. I'm going to kind of do my own. And then I finish the sketch. What I do is I like to create a plane along a path. So I like to do this. And then on this plane here, create a sketch. And right at the center of that sketch, I'll do a tiny, tiny little 0.5 millimeter or 1 millimeter, depending on how big you want your panel lines. Circle rather, and then I will, sometimes I'll do a square. Let's do actually edit a sketch. Okay, I'm actually going to do something different here. I'm going to do this. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so I'm going to go sweep. Where's my sweep? Pipe sometimes works. Yep, pipe will work here. So if you use the pipe tool and you cut it, then you get some pretty cool little, why did that come out? Oh, because it came out as a pipe. Hold on. I'm going to use the sweep tool. I apparently don't have that in my quick commands. Path here. There we go. Much better. And I'm going to edit that feature because I accidentally cut into a different object. I want to cut into this one, but not that one. Okay, perfect. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror that on both sides. So I'm going to go to mirror. We're going to go to features. We're going to select that feature. Then we're going to select the mirror plane. And then it's going to mirror that onto the other side. So we've got that panel line on the other side. And then what we can do is we can do the same thing here if we want to, but I might just leave it and then score it in with a file later on. So you can see here there are a number of different ways of scribing. You can scribe with different shapes. You can scribe with any number of things. I'm actually going to go back to this sketch. I'm going to fillet this edge just for fun to show you that it does work if you go back. I'm going to finish the sketch. We're going to edit this feature. Profile. It doesn't really like that fillet. It means it was too small, I think. Edit sketch. We're going to go with 2 millimeters. Yep, sometimes this doesn't work very well. Gonna select the profile again. Then we'll select the path. That time it worked. Great. Now that should have mirrored perfectly. Awesome. Okay, so there's your panel line, or whatever you really want to call it. Okay, so as you can see, I kind of wing my process of putting in details and general pieces as I go along. For the sake of showing you some things before I get to the end, I'm going to try and show you how I make the inset parts for these two sections right now. But first, we're going to detail this top bit so that we know exactly what we have to get rid of, so to speak. Okay, so let's look at that again. Let's look at that image again down here. Okay, so we've got some panel lines. Those are fine. We can make those easy. I just showed you how. And there's a few little details up here that will probably be post details. So yeah, okay, we're gonna deal with this piece first. Create a sketch. We're going to hide everything else just so it's not distracting us. Okay, so we're going to actually take some cuts out of here. Let me look at that again. Right. So we're going to go. I'm going to do 4 millimeters. And then we're going to do 4.5. Yep. Okay, then we're going to pattern those. 8.5. Okay, so in Blender and other softwares, this would be done in a very different way. But what we're going to do is we're going to extrude through here. This is my process, remember, not necessarily a normal process. And then I'm going to unhide the sketch that I just used. And I'm going to construct a midplane. Midplane. Create a sketch. I'm going to project those onto it. Create sketch. That is not where I wanted the sketch to go. Let's try that again. Finish sketch. Come on. Create sketch. Edit sketch. Okay. Great. We're going to project these pieces onto it. Okay. Cancel. That is not what I wanted. Why is it doing this? Create sketch. Okay, there we go. Sometimes it doesn't listen to me. It's irritating. Project. Now we can select those. Okay, so those are there. We're going to fill those up so that we have something to work with. Perfect. Finish sketch. Okay, so then we're going to extrude. We're actually going to look at this again, and we're going to make our new line. This is being irritating. Sorry about that. It's because I have that sketch showing. Edit sketch. Okay, we're going to make our new line here. Perfect. Finish sketch. These are going to be extruded out. Mirrored, so symmetric. 5 millimeters. Perfect. And here we can fill up these edges to be those circular bits. Now we could have done this in the sketch, but I didn't. But it doesn't really matter. Okay, and then I'm going to mirror those on that center plane. So features, mirror plane. We're going to show that. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to hide that again. We're going to fill up these edges here. Go 2. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Then we're going to do the same thing up here. Just want, no, not that edge. I want this edge. I want this edge of this edge. And go with 2. Let's go with 2.5. Let's go with 3. Yeah, let's go with 3. Okay, then we're going to do one more. Create sketch. Draw a rectangle here. So you'll notice that I tend to put dimensions on almost everything, and that's because I just like to have things look sort of proportional. If I find myself kind of being irritated by it if I don't do that, it's not necessary. You can do this more freeform than I do. It's just nice because if you dimension things, then you can go in and actually edit them later, whereas you can't if you don't. In this case, we're going to do join. Okay, and then this seemed to be rounded a tiny bit. Okay, remember, if there are sharp edges that you want to break, you can break them in the post-processing. So you notice here, that fillet ended up messing up some of my other fillets. So I'm actually going to edit that and go just to 2.5. Nope, that still went a little far, so we're going to do it again. Actually, we're just going to wait to do those fillets. So we're going to delete that fillet. Delete. Yes, that's fine. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do the fillets on these other parts first. Let's take a look at that. Those are pretty serious, so we'll go with 3. Yeah, that looks pretty good. It actually looks like we want that, and that. So we'll go 3. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. Take a look at that again. And those are nice broken edges. We can fillet those out if we want. Okay, fill out all this stuff. Perfect. Nice broken edges there. Okay, so now we can go back and we can fillet these other edges that we wanted to fillet. We're going to go 2.5. We can actually go 3 now because we have those other fillets taken care of. I'm going to go 3.5. Go 3. I like 3. So this is all pretty subjective. Okay, so now we're going to do the panel lines. I'm not actually going to do anything with this panel line here. If we look at here, it's kind of joined in. It just kind of flows into it, so we're not going to worry about that. So this is a case where I'm actually going to finish this sketch. I'm going to, yeah, I made a mistake here. Okay, so because I sort of made a mistake in a way. This is actually going to be a different way of doing panel lines now that I'm looking at this. Okay, so we're going to create a new sketch on this plane. Draw, I'm going to go to about there. Then we're going to do an arc. Going to go to about there. Oh, that came out actually pretty perfectly. So this is the first thing we're going to do. We're going to finish this sketch. And then sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. We're going to do a split body. We're going to split the body. We're going to split the tool. Use a splitting tool here. And so that's going to split this whole thing into a new body. See how there's a, where's my, that did work. Okay, so it basically takes that line and splits it all the way across. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this body. I'm going to isolate that. I'm going to take a chamfer. I'm going to chamfer the whole thing just a tiny bit. So we'll probably do a 0.5 millimeter here. It doesn't like that very much. So we're going to try 0.25. Nope, still doesn't like that. We're going to go with 1. Nope, still doesn't like that. Okay. This is the problem with doing it this way sometimes, is you have some issues occasionally. So we're going to go 0.5. That works. It's this front feature here that's proving problematic. So I'm actually going to delete this tiny little face, see if that helps us. And if it doesn't, I may have to fillet this by a 1/2 millimeter. So we're just going to do that right away. Going to chamfer this and that. Yep, there we go. Then it's a continuous surface. So that's a lot better. Continuous line, excuse me. So we're going to go 0.5. And that seems to have worked. Okay, so that made one side of the panel line. So we're going to unisolate that. Then we're going to isolate this one. Do the same thing. So now remember how I deleted that face. I'm going to delete that face. And I filleted something by 0.5. I think it was this one. So fillet 0.5. I'm going to go to chamfer, and that looks like it worked. Perfect. Same thing again. We're going to go 0.5. Doesn't like that. We're going to go 0.25. 0.25 worked. Okay, so we're actually going to go back to this previous chamfer here. We're going to make that 0.25. Great. Okay, so now we can unisolate this. And now you see we have a nice panel line there. Now, one mistake I made, before I'm going to go back to all these, we're going to isolate, close, hide that. We're going to fillet this 1 millimeter, and we're going to fillet the other one 1 millimeter. Okay, so this is how I'm getting my panel lines now. So we're going to now move back to the end of the timeline, and those chamfers are angry, which is normal because we added some stuff. So we're going to go to edit feature here, and we're going to finish those up. Actually, we're just going to shift back to here, edit the feature. I'm going to hide that top piece. I'm going to go there. Okay, I should fix that, and then we're going to go all the way down and see if that gets fixed, and unhide that. And that didn't get fixed, so we're going to go to edit feature, and we're going to hide this one down here. So one of the things that happened here, I'm going to delete this chamfer, and I'm not really sure why that worked, but it did, I think. Oh, no, I see what happened. So we're going to go to chamfer, and it's going to select that, pretty much that whole thing. Yep, 0.25. And then we have our 1/2 millimeter panel line. Now, 1/2 millimeter is not a big panel line, so you could go through later on and actually score that out. But that is most of our top piece detailed here. Let's get a little bit more back here. We'll go through a fillet here. This is actually going to get filleted here. And I think if we look, yeah, that's not actually filleted as much as I did. So this is a cool feature with Fusion. You can do something called delete face. You can do it in SolidWorks, but it's a slightly different process. I'm actually going to fillet these differently. I want this to be 3.5 millimeters. And then we're going to do the same thing back here. We're going to fillet that. Sorry, we're going to fillet this edge first. This is all order of operations, and a lot of this you'll discover when you are working on these yourself. So we're going to go with 2. That's a little much. We're going to go with 1. Okay. And then we're going to actually revert that back 1. We're going to fillet this first. Go to 3. And then we're going to come back, and it's going to be angry because now that's a continuous line. And we're going to cancel that. Just delete that. Try that again. Fillet. There we go. We'll go with 1.5. Okay, so there's actually a feature on the side of this with a flip-up iron sight. So I'm going to tackle that later on because that's not a huge deal. Okay. So I'm going to hide this right now, this canvas, and we're going to bring out some of these other pieces that we have. So right now, I'm planning on cutting out a big section in the middle of this. I could change how I want this all to go together, but since this is the sort of route I've taken, I'm going to stick with it. Okay, so the first things first, I usually do my biggest cuts first. So this top piece and this piece right here are actually the same piece. I'm going to join those. I don't actually need those to be separate. There are a number of ways that we can separate this, remember. And I know I keep saying that, but it is important to remember. Okay, so first things first, we're going to Boolean operation this piece. This is going to be our cutting tool. So we want these two to be the target. Make sure that, come on. So sometimes Fusion is a little funky. So we're going to make this one be the target and this one be the tool. So we're going to cut it and we want to keep the tool. And we're going to do the same thing again with the other side. Tool body is this guy and we're going to cut it and we're going to keep the tool. Okay, so now if I hide this, there's a big gap here. That is cool. That is what we want. I'm not sure really what's happening with this fillet right here, but we're going to just kind of let that slide. Hopefully that won't be an issue later on. So you'll notice that it only cut out part of it. Great, that's good. We also want to cut out of this piece. So we're going to make this the target body, this the tool, and we want to keep the tool. Okay, so now if we hide this completely, there's some other parts that we still have not taken care of. This piece I'm planning on printing on, hold on, this face here. So one of the things I want to make sure you realize is that I'm still going to be cutting some stuff out of that. That will be a little bit of cleanup and will be some fit shenanigans, but that's okay. It's really okay. We don't need to worry too much about that. We're going to actually fillet this entire thing. Get a 1mm fillet. But that's also okay. Actually, no, it's not. We're going to go back before all those, and then I'm going to fillet that first. And now we're going to go back, and it should fix that. Perfect. Okay. So you'll notice that this is like a perfect fit right now. Before we get much farther, I'm going to make this the target and this the tool. Cut this section out. Same thing with this one. I'm going to make this the target and this the tool. Okay, so now we're going to isolate this here. Right now we have one section that has a bit taken out of it. That's okay. We're going to expand the inner walls of this. So I'm going to go -1mm. Same over here. We're going to extrude it, -0.1. But that went the wrong direction if you noticed, I think. -0.1. Nope, that's perfect. I find that in PLA printing, -0.1 is like the perfect. Sometimes it has to be -0.2. It depends. It really depends. And there are different ways that I do this with different features. But this should work okay for this feature. If it doesn't, I can sand down that little feature that we're placing in there so that it fits in there the right way. So you can see that there's a gap, but when you put those all together, that's not going to show up. So that is the first step to actually making these all fit together the right way. One thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to chamfer these edges a tiny bit. We're going to go with like 1mm. Okay, so I know that if I look at my other body here, I need to label these, my bad. So if I hide this top one, don't care about that anymore. I chamfered this. I can go in here, hide this little greebly, and then chamfer all this by 1mm. The problem that I'm going to have, I think, is that that just chamfered it the wrong direction, if that makes sense. Wait a minute. Let's find out. So we can double check this if we go to Inspect, Section Analysis, and then we shrink this down here. Nope, that did it just right. So see how that's a perfect fit? Perfect. Okay, so I want to hide this. And then one of the things I'm going to do in this case is actually take the other piece and chamfer these actually by, I'm going to go to edit this. I'm going to make this by 1.1 millimeter. And it did not like that. I say negative 1.1. Well, let's see if I can. 1 point. No, it doesn't like that. So we're going to have to do the other one. Sometimes this happens. And yeah, so let's see if this works. It doesn't. Okay. So in this case, you may have a fit issue here. But I really don't think that it's going to be a big deal because you'll be able to sand that part down to fit how you want it to. What you can do is you can shift this back negative 0.1 millimeters, and that will help a lot. So then what you can do actually is you can delete these faces. Ah, yeah, that is exactly what I wanted to do. So I shifted that face back, and it actually sort of extruded a little bit. So the problem was is that there's a tiny little shape there that we couldn't see that became an issue when it tried to fill it more. So there are ways around things like this. I kind of accidentally found it this time, but this has happened in the past, rather. So you can see now that one will fit in nicely, glue in, be no seams that we'll need to worry about. So now we're going to deal with this guy. We're going to look at this guy here from the edge, and we're actually going to chamfer this a tiny bit. We'll go with 1 again, see what happens. Point 0.5 seems to work okay. I missed a couple lines there. 5. Okay, perfect. So then we bring back this piece here, and we're going to subtract that. Take this piece as the target body, this piece as the tool. Make sure you keep the tool. Boom, done. Okay, got that, we got that, we got that, we got that. And now see there's some weirdness going on here. We can just delete those. Oh, that did not do what I wanted. So sometimes it does not get it is not happy with the sequence of events. So you'll have to figure those out for yourself, really. But again, this should all work pretty well. If we just again, sequence of events. Let's try this side. Nope, doesn't like that. Try this guy. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Nope. There we go. And still not okay. Interesting. There we go. So sometimes you just have to like try and figure things out. Now this might be a little bit weird when you glue it in, so you may need to kind of sand that down or use a lighter or something on it if you're doing FDM printing. This one you can see there's obviously more of an inset, but honestly, not going to be a big deal when you paint it. You won't even see that. If you're worried about seeing that, then you could have it inset less. You could do a number of different things, but I think that will look just fine. So let's take a look. So this one has a much smaller shift. I'm not sure why. Yeah, we'll have to see when we print it. But the beauty of this is that now, what I like to do again, is I like to save this all out. Save a copy as, pistol copy, Pistol V2. And then I have a place to kind of work from on certain parts if there's issues later on. So one of the things we have not done yet is expand these two parts. So we're going to isolate this. We're going to extrude that -0.1. And you'll notice here there was an issue. So that means that we have to also do the fillet. And that was unhappy. That seemed to work. Again, it was an order of operations issue. So if we compare those two sides, I gotta label these like I said. You'll notice that these are not the same. So we're gonna do the same thing. -0.1. And now they should all line up just right. This also needs to be -0.1. Okay, so now we have these two cutouts and this top detail ready to kind of all fit together. And this is exactly what I do with most of my props. Now, there's a couple fillets down here I'm going to add just to kind of get these pieces all finished up and ready to test print if I wanted to. So we're going to do 1mm fillet on that. Okay, and those look good. That means that down here, I'm also going to want a 1mm fillet, but we could do one there, see if that works. 1 meter, nope. There we go. We're going to go with 2mm. Nope, we're going to go 3mm. 3mm. Okay. Great. So now we have some details, we have some panel lines, and we have a number of other different features that we've added in. Now, yes, if we go look at this, there are some more details on here. Oh, maybe not, actually. Oh, that looks pretty good. I did miss a panel line up here, so we're going to add that now. Create a sketch. T for trim. Trim those up. We're going to fillet those out. You could use a spline or an arc, but I just didn't. Okay, finish sketch. We're going to split the body. Split body, this guy, with this tool. Boom, done. Okay, then we're going to look at that, isolate that. Got to chamfer that edge all the way around. 0.25. Boom, done. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to isolate that guy. And then we're going to join those back together. Join. When you join, make sure you don't have the keep tool selected or you'll have duplicate bodies. So now if I go to that, okay, I'm going to rename these now. Top rail. Side 1. Side L. Trig L. Side R. Trig R. Trig R, get it. Sorry, couldn't help myself. I like to call this the receiver. barrel. So naming your bodies is actually pretty nice, but I'm going to call this the barrel greebly 1 top, barrel grebe bottom. So we've done a good job of doing some detailing on some of these parts and figuring out how they're going to start fitting together. All of these parts so far will be able to fit together with just glue, so I'm not super worried about how much fit we're going to have, just because I have some experience with these fitting. Again, the beauty of 3D printing is that we can kind of do this and try again if stuff doesn't fit. That's what I'm going to leave you with today, though. This has been fun. We're making some progress on this. It doesn't seem like a ton of progress, but the detailing is what takes most of the time in this sort of project. Thanks for watching, and if you like this, please subscribe and comment and ask any questions you have, and I will talk to you in the next time around. Okay, see ya.